Hi, I've been asked to do a poetry reading for the Art Bar. So I'm going to read some of my poems and some poems by others, which I think is a good idea, and a good friend told me that it's a good practice. So this poem is called 30th Anniversary. It's our 40th year being married, so it tells you how old this poem is. 30th Anniversary. It has taken me this future of time to learn how to love you. I grabbed the scalp of your fierce grip on mine to shake us into the truth. We circled in a madness of crazy ideals. I don't indulge you, I accept you. Because we believed we could pull off a miracle, daring God to send us a job so insignificant that it could change the world. And we did not notice because it had braided our minds into each other's thoughts, each attempting to throw a quick fist that would unlock the embrace. But neither of us would risk the eternal separation. And the answer was left in a child, a woman, a teenager, adoption, cancer. The radical faith that dares them all to face us, to shout us, to wrestle us down, while we remained locked, now fused into each other into one, the division worn frail. If one goes down, the second is done, but we stood and they watched, and then the bonds broke, but the spirits were merged and our thoughts meandered, as God's mind did when the prayers were answered. Yes. 30th anniversary. I always think of the Flintstones and their happy anniversary song, which was done by those guys, the Wayouts. No, it wasn't done by the Wayouts. But you remember the Wayouts? I remember the Wayouts. Anyhow, this one is a story about a riding accident that my wife had. It's called The Hack. The hayfield is divided from the pasture by a long electric fence, and if it was not the fall, we could get a third cutting. The maples to the west are rows of orange broccoli that keep thinning in the wind. It snows between sunbreaks, and this invigorates my mare. Her neck is thick in front of my hands, her head's erect, her ears straight forward, and I feel her twitch at every movement of brush along the tree line. My heel is in her rib to keep her going straight as leaves fall and scatter to the ground. Excuse me. It was a time like this, the same fall season, but another field, another bush lot, and the mare was only 3. She should not have been out there with the deer and coyotes and even a badger. The horse spooked and panicked, bolted through trees. I later found a branch lodged in her helmet. She said, "I've fallen, hung up. I phoned 3 hospitals to find her." She was getting up when I walked in, while a nurse was pressing her down. "Oh, you're her husband, thank God." How do you love, I asked myself as I pushed the horse with my legs to go forward, into the wind and the sleet. Her muscles lift up as she accepts my bid, and we gallop, we gallop, we gallop. When I was young, I made a vow to never need anyone. But at the hospital, I saw her like that, and I knew she had weaned me from that fear. And as I turned my horse back to the east, precipitation sails half frozen and wet, filling the void of the valley, and up to the rim of the hills. Alrighty. And this poem is untitled, but I think this is about my dad, but it seems to be about me as well. I think my dad died because he was overwhelmed, because maybe he thought it all boiled down to him, and it's dangerous to take the welfare of others into your soul. They have minds of their own, and minds, as you know, are circular arguments. They know what they know, and to change them, well, you know, it's usually a damn hard thing. Usually the program must crash, and that's painful to watch. Oh, so painful to watch. And that is what might just kill you. And what do? Well, I don't know, but why not watch your own mind spin and find your own path? That will take a lifetime, at least. But at least you'll never be bored, and seeing yourself for the first time will help you to be really kind to all those other minds. Yeah. All right. I'm going to read this little bit from a new poem I'm working on called 70 times 7. It's going to be 490 stanzas. Yeah, that's a long... Anyhow, moths in my skull, me rather dull, soft wings are fluttering inside my head. It feels like feet pattering, children who should be in bed. I listen too often. I can't hear you. My friend's brother once stepped out in front of the semi. My friend was the one they asked to identify the corpse. I often think of him when I have run out of options. My other friend as a boy watched a truck cab, a semi, again fall on his father, crushing him dead. I wonder how people can live in spite of their quaking memories. The ground is always moving. How could it still remain still, with all of us digging, looking for peace among tombs? My friend lost her son decades ago. I secretly mourn. The silence becomes someone listening. Darkness abides as a dream. The cold will soon cover you as a blanket, like Falstaff was in the end, exiled by Harry, his friend. The moment is all you have. I've said this before. Remind myself continually, so I can deceive master deceiver ego, who still believes there's a tomorrow. The stronger will surrender. The weaker always prevails. Arrogance cannot cover what humility exposed. Check your gun belt at the door. We're all equal in this place. Sooner or later, we all wake up with last night's dreaming still in our head. You are you and nobody else. Living your life is all you can do, but you can do that very well. So, reading poems by other people. So I would like to read a poem that I think is one of my favorite poems of all time, written by my friend James Dewar, who's like a friend and a mentor. I would think this would be a dangerous poem. My friend Libby once said, Ron, when you write, when you're dangerous, you're good. Well, this is really good because I think it's pretty dangerous. It kind of treads on a lot of territory that is real life and really wonderful, but some people might struggle with it. Anyhow, Uncle Bill died in Korea by James Dewar. Can I bum a smoke, I asked. Taxis and buses passed by on Bloor Street. A flash in the dark and silence blasted in from the Arctic. My mother met me at the corner. I thought you quit, she said, hobbling on 80-year-old hips. I did, I said. I'm smoking other people's. Dead leaves piled up where the wind couldn't escape in the restaurant door jamb. Your Uncle Bill was killed in Korea, Mom said, clutching her tattered purse into her stomach. Korean waiters directed us to start tables. Something made my mother's jaw grind, like she was about to spit. Koreans flitted in and out in sing-song tones. It had been over a year since my dad's funeral. Your dad was jealous of you, Mom blurted, getting it off her chest like a cough. A flash on the street as a cop car zinged by, then silence in the nicotine cloud. One of these people killed your Uncle Bill, Mom growled. When you gonna do something about it? I stayed stuck on the word jealous. I sure could use a cigarette, Mom said. Why'd you quit smoking, anyway? That is a brilliant poem. So, there's one of mine in this book as well, seeing as I were talking about streets in Toronto. This is called West on St. Clair. I had my car towed once, disappeared off Davenport, where I had parked it only for 5 minutes. Then I saw the sign, no parking between 7 and 9. I started walking. Even my damn cell phone was in that car. I walked west on St. Clair, from a payphone. The cops, the towing company, the pound, they had taken it, those pricks. So I resumed walking to find the lot where my car was impounded. I walked east on St. Clair and west on St. Clair, looking for a street I couldn't find. I passed a crazy woman stopping cars, barefoot in t-shirt and stretch pants. I could see her wrinkled belly and blonde, greasy hair blow across her face. So I walked on, muttering to myself, swearing at the unfairness of life and all the ills befallen me. I could not find the pound, so I walked back east on St. Clair, and there she was again, standing at the crosswalk, opposite Starbucks and CIBC, in front of townhouses worth 500 Gs. Cars were stopping one by one, while she stood, with the pedestrian lights flashing, not proceeding. And she saw me and hollered out across the street, "You think it's tough? At least you have a bed to sleep in." My body sagged, exhaled a long breath, while I stood watching traffic, starting and stopping for her. So, here's a few more of my poems. This one, it's funny how poems can put memories in your head. Contrasts. The snow was falling like a kid scribbling designs, pillowed on the rails and the deck and the chairs and the yard outside. Warm February sun radiating the room through patio doors. The white cat with brown and black spots and two opposite colored eyes, one yellow, one blue, sprawled in the heat among scattered blocks, bright red and green. A tractor of wood my dad made when he lived in Old Brecon. He's gone now. And a 2-year-old grandson on the couch, with the green slip to prevent messy stains, sleeping off the flue, under the quilt that Zena knit. She's gone now too. Black wool hair and brown skin, hands curled in soft, tiny fists, and me as pale as a Scot in my big chair. The fridge hums, oscillating rhythm of a fast-pumping piston, soothing my cares. I lost that there. I read that one again. The snow is falling like a kid scribbling designs, pillowed on the rails and the deck and the chairs and the yard outside. Warm February sun radiating the room through patio doors. The white cat with brown and black spots and two opposite colored eyes, one yellow, one blue, sprawled in the heat among scattered blocks bright red and green. A tractor of wood my dad made when he lived in Old Brecon. He's gone now. And a 2-year-old grandson on the couch, with the green slip to prevent messy stains, sleeping off the flue under the quilt that Zena knit. She's gone now too. Black wool hair and brown skin, hands curled in soft tiny fists, and me as pale as a Scot in my big chair. The fridge hums, oscillating rhythm of a fast pumping piston, soothing my cares. It's funny you read that. It just takes you right back, doesn't it? Doesn't, I mean, not you, but me. But that's what poems do. They take us back, don't they? Our poems kind of memorialize things. So, I've always listened to David Marsden. He's always been a kind of a friend of through the radio. Some of my darkest, difficult times I've spent the recoup listening to the Marsden Theater on the radio. It's funny because once I used to listen to Marsden when I was, like 12 years old, and the Pete and Geets had their morning show, and I love Pete and Geets. They used to record all their shows. So I'm in sales, and one day I'm in a house and I'm talking about air conditioners, and they have all this CFNY memorabilia all over the place. And I started talking about how excited I was about CFNY, the old days, and Pete and Geets, and I really got on to Pete and Geets. So the gentleman goes off and comes back with a business card and hands it to me. David Hayden, I believe his name was. Anyhow, he was Geets. He was Geets. I actually got to meet one of my heroes. Anyhow, so, but this is a poem I wrote, and it kind of commemorates Marsden. I still listen to Marsden. He has his own station, nythespirit.com. So anyway, Marsden Theatre, Saturday night. A jet sparks the sky with movement and noise that strives to catch up. My wife, drunk, is humming in her snoring, and a grandson is in bed with mommy far away in mind and intention. The sky is still like gray as the day slowly retreats, listening to Marsden as I do so often, sitting on this deck. As mosquitoes come to greet me, to eat me, this silent supplicant, the seeker of what can never be answered, for the answer is being here. So we've had a fairly dramatic marriage, my wife and I. A lot to do with adopting a little girl, and then her having a son, and just a complicated situation. So this is a poem about the Northern Lights, and you kind of have these things that happen. It seems like there is some sort of a force outside of physical reality that influences physical reality on your behalf. Even though they don't take away all these things that seem to make life really, really difficult, they do seem to help you make sense of it somehow. So anyhow, this is called Northern Lights. Last night we saw the Northern Lights, a ridge of phosphor raining down brilliance. I have not seen them for the last quarter century. The last time was when I carried my newly adopted 7-year-old daughter, lightweight and frail, after 4 homes and 2 shelters. Then they were red, the holy grail spilling into our lives. Last night they were green, shifting hue coiling, dropping shafts in the dark, like rain in the mountains. Is God speaking? For now my daughter has a son. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey, I'm commenting on my own poetry like somebody else wrote it. Somebody else probably did write it. Some entity writing things through me. Who knows? I wanted to read this poem by Mike Lipsius. Is that backwards? Probably. Mike Lipsius is, I've met him a couple times. He's a good poet, good guy. And but this poem it really, really means a lot to me. Don't ask me why. I just like these guys who lived at times that were pretty difficult, and how they're commemorated. And that's what Mike does here. So anyhow, Granddad. Freight trains roar by every 15 minutes on the back patio, and in my sulk, all I do is drink and be miserable about a future of no future. All I have to celebrate is being grown up enough to file my first EI claim. If only I had the guts of my grandfather. He would have seen the train coming, climbed the fence and jumped. He did that one time in the 50s, onto a boxcar going nowhere or everywhere. A dreamer of a Cape Breton coal miner who became a hitchhiker stranded in rural Quebec, living off crab apples. He saw the train coming and thought, at that moment, he was a jumper, a quitter, or a jumper. He made his way to the dreamland utopia of Ontario. I remember the family dinner when he told me why he got teary-eyed at family gatherings. Had I not leapt on that boxcar, not you, not anyone would be here tonight. In my granddad's honor, every time I see no future, I'll be a jumper. Very good. Very, very good. Mike. Okay, so I was once listening to Lindsay radio station. I don't know if it's there anymore, but it was a rock station. And this the DJ was told a story about Gord Downie reading a poem by Al Purdy, and I knew the poem, and I was very impressed to hear Gord Downie reading it. And naturally, Gord Downie from Kingston, and Al Purdy, kind of living up there somewhere up north of that. But in any case, I was quite impressed, and it's always been a favorite poem of mine. If you ever get a chance to hear Al Purdy read it, it's brilliant. If you ever get a chance to hear Al Purdy read anything, it's brilliant. I remember being in a poetry workshop, and one of the ladies that was there with us told about when she was in university, and they were going to have this poet, Al Purdy, come and read to them. And she said when he came in, he looked like a street person, and with long, greasy hair and this big old trench coat. And then I actually met another gentleman, I can't remember his name, who was like a big wig in the publishing world. He was really, really old when I met him in his 80s, a Scottish gentleman. And he talked about Al Purdy as well. He said you'd see him marching down the halls with these big, broad shoulders, and the same thing with the hair. I guess the hair was the thing, right? So that's like so many guys when we were kids, that were around. Tough old guys who'd seen too much. And I'm starting to learn a little bit about that kind of stuff. And it's, anyhow, Al Purdy. At the Quinte Hotel. I am drinking beer with yellow flowers in underground sunlight, and you can see that I am a sensitive man. And I notice that the bartender is a sensitive man too, so I tell him about the beer. I tell him the beer he draws is half fart and half horse piss, and all wonderful yellow flowers. But the bartender is not quite so sensitive as I supposed he was, the way he looks at me now, and does not appreciate my exquisite analogy. Over in one corner, two guys are quietly making love in the brief prelude to infinity. Opposite them, a peculiar fight enables the drinkers to lay aside their comic books and watch with interest as I watch with interest. A wiry little man slugs another guy, then tracks him bleeding into the toilet and slugs him to the floor again with ugly red flowers on the tile. 3 minutes later, he roosters over to the table where his drunk friend sits with another friend and slugs both of them ass over electric kettle, so I have to walk around on my way for a piss. Now I am a sensitive man, and I say to him mildly as hell, you shouldn't have knocked over that good beer with those beautiful flowers in it. So he says to me, come on. So I come on, like a rabbit with weak kidneys, I guess, like a yellow streak charging on flower power, I suppose, and knock the shit out of him and sit on him, he's just a little guy, and say reprovingly, violence will get you nowhere this time, chum. Now you take me. I'm a sensitive man. And would you believe I write poems? But like I see the doubt in his upside down face, in fact, all the faces. What kind of poems? Flower poems. So tell us a poem. I got off the little guy but reluctantly, for he was comfortable, and told them this poem. They crowded around me with tears in their eyes and wrung my hands feelingly in my pockets, for it was a heart-warming moment for literature, and moved by the demonstrable effect of great art and the brotherhood of people, I remarked, the poem ought to be worth some beer. It was a mistake of terminology, for silence came, and it was brought home to me in the tavern that poems will not really buy beer or flowers or a goddamn thing. And I was sad, for I am a sensitive man. How pretty. So I guess I'll read a poem. We went to Ireland. Got a bonus from one of my suppliers, and I bought a ticket to go to Ireland with Eight Slingers, which was a wonderful, wonderful time. And here is a poem I wrote as part of that excursion. Pilgrim. There are not many who will leave the comfort of their ego, the tyranny of voice and opinion, absorbed through the cheesecloth of insecurity and self-doubting, until the counsel of others wraps around like a wool coat. But you did. To most people, nakedness is a dream, even in the union of their body with another. During intercourse and after, few become naked. I think, I don't know, but I guess that their nakedness becomes a covering. Eventually, after a while, it's a cold thing, like the skin of a fish. But you stripped bare, you showed me all of yourself. And I'm no hero, no god of a mountain, no great deity who knows no bounds. I was as timid as a tree frog, even though I was big and mouthy and could wave tall arms like branches, scaring away birds and squirrels, even raccoons, even a bear. But all the while I was on the back of a leaf with sticky suction cup fingers, taking on the colors of the world. You sang, you teased me out. You called the frog, now I'm your prince. I will die for you, and more importantly, live for you and with you, till the end. So one more. First person I started writing with was Libby Shire. Libby was a great friend, and she had a huge influence on the person that I now am. And whether that's good or bad remains to be seen, I guess, but I love Libby, and here's the first kind of part of a long poem called Sky Narratives. I've been this guy. I used to do a lot of drugs and really high all night long, mornings, stayed up all night. You'd be so lonely and the world would be so empty. And she captures that beautifully. Sky Narratives by Libby Shire. Say that dawn is first, the beginning of the end, of the last hour of night's darkness. Every insomniac knows the despair of that hour of the wolf, where every minute is itself an hour and seconds beat like drums, a dirge of drums inside the head. It's the hour of death, the chosen death of suicide and other deaths where choice is obscure, where resistance slackens, where giving up into the good night happens or is chosen in some mysterious way. And if only she or he or they had waited, if only they'd had a little patience, if only, eventually the sky would begin to lighten. Eventually something else would be possible. The dark mental plots of 4 a.m. would give way to delivery trucks and birds. The sleeping lover would wake and bestow a kiss and ring in the daylight, which begins from black to dark blue and lightens slowly, changed untouched by clocks and calendars, desperate inventions of people ill at ease with the gaseous nature of things, always thinking solid matter, least common item in the universe. Dawn is brief, like most transitions, like the birth of babies and planets. Then we settle in for the long haul of daylight. And there you go. If this makes it to our bar, thanks for watching. Otherwise, God bless everybody.